This was the moment the Houthis realized they screwed up.
When you go after a US warship, you better not miss because you won't get a second shot. At 2 a.m. local time on January 14, 2024, a modified anti-ship ballistic missile launched from a mobile platform in Hodeidah, Yemen. Traveling at a blistering speed of 3.4 kilometers per second, it was set to hit its target, the US Navy destroyer USS Laboon, in under a minute. As the missile soared into the sky, its GPS guidance system locked onto pre-programmed coordinates, sent earlier by an Iranian ship cruising the Red Sea. A couple of miles from the launch site in a reinforced bunker, Houthi operators monitored telemetry data through encrypted Iranian comms.
Grinning with excitement at the idea they might finally hit an American ship, they had no clue the missile's inertial navigation system had drifted just half a degree off.
A small error, sure, but one with serious consequences as the missile raced toward the Gulf of Aden. What they launched was an Iranian Khorramshahr missile modified into an anti-ship version by the Houthis. With a max range of just 186 miles, they had to dangerously position the launchers close to the coast. That increased the chance of hitting US ships, but also made them easy targets for American sensors and counter-battery fire. It was a risky move, but one they figured was worth it. They believed this was their best shot at hitting Laboon, and it all came down to a simple math problem. See, the missile's circular error probable, a fancy term for accuracy, is about 150 meters or 450 feet. Laboon is only 510 feet long. That means unless the ship is stationary or barely moving, the odds of a direct hit are slim. If it's going faster than a few knots, the missile has almost no chance. Unfortunately for Laboon, the missile came at the worst possible moment. Now, while destroyers like Laboon are equipped with 4 massive gas turbines that can push the ship past 30 knots, there's a catch. They burn fuel fast, 6,500 gallons an hour when running full tilt. With a fuel tank holding 450,000 gallons, they simply can't keep that speed up for long. Plus, running the engines non-stop eventually requires shutting them down for mandatory maintenance.
So, to save fuel and get that maintenance done, ships like Laboon often enter what's called trail shaft mode, when only one engine is running. During that time, the ship moves slowly and has very limited maneuverability, and at that exact worst-case moment, that's when the missile showed up. Back aboard Laboon, things were quiet. The crew was just trying to get through another slow, boring shift. With the ship crawling along at 3 knots, barely faster than the current, it was practically standing still.
Then, out of nowhere, the radar screen lit up. A blip appeared about 200 meters out. The weather was bad and the sensors hadn't picked it up yet, but the crew quickly crunched the numbers through their Aegis combat system. Whatever that thing was, it was moving fast, it was hostile, and it was heading straight for them. Problem was they couldn't see it, so how do you shoot down something you can't see?
Luckily for Laboon, help was already in the air. Enter the E-2D Hawkeye, a high-flying radar plane cruising over the Red Sea at 27,000 feet. Seconds after the missile launched, its giant radar dome, the AN/APY-9, picked it up. Based on the missile's trajectory, speed, and flight pattern, the system instantly identified it as a threat.
Thanks to a scan rate of 6 full sweeps per minute, the Hawkeye can track hundreds of square kilometers at a time, providing updated location data every 10 seconds. Almost immediately, its crew started feeding the missile's path to Laboon via a secure Link 16 connection. Because of the Hawkeye's cooperative engagement capability with Laboon, it could keep sending accurate targeting data, even if Laboon's own sensors couldn't detect the threat yet.
Now Laboon had a firing solution, but only 30 seconds to act. As the missile reached its highest point, it flipped and began its final descent, what's called a high-angle dive attack. This maneuver aims to exploit a common weakness in ship defenses, the radar blind spot from above. Most ship radars aren't great at detecting steep, top-down attacks, but Laboon wasn't just any ship.
Laboon isn't just some ordinary radar ship, so when the missile begins its final dive toward the ship, it gets detected almost instantly, and at that moment the crew realizes luck is finally on their side. Remember that 0.5 degree navigation error from earlier? Over the missile's flight path, that tiny deviation has multiplied from just a few feet off course to nearly 10 miles off target now. But here's the thing. The missile doesn't know that. As it begins its descent, the onboard accelerometers detect the drop and trigger the active seeker for the missile's final targeting phase. It starts searching for the GPS coordinates that the Houthis had fed it. But neither the missile nor the Houthis realize Laboon isn't anywhere near where it was last spotted. Seconds after being alerted about the incoming threat, Laboon's deck officer orders an emergency engine start. That skips over most of the usual boot-up procedures and gets the ship from 3 knots to over 30 knots in just 90 seconds. As the ship speeds up, Laboon turns toward port to maximize coverage from the Mark 999 illuminator, a radar system that guides energy directly at incoming threats during the final seconds of an SM-2 missile's flight. That's the missile Laboon is about to fire in response.
Fortunately for the crew, and thanks to the fact that the Houthis aren't exactly building top-notch missiles, they quickly realize this one is going to overshoot. It'll pass overhead without getting anywhere close. Sure enough, about 30 seconds later, the crew spots the missile splashing down harmlessly 12.5 miles away.
With the threat neutralized, they start planning their next move. But first, they need to find the launch site. And that's a lot easier said than done, unless you're the US military. Remember that E-2D Hawkeye radar plane that was flying earlier? Well, now it's switching to attack mode. The Houthis don't have early warning aircraft or satellites like the US does. The only way they can conduct over-the-horizon targeting and battle damage assessments is by streaming video from drones.
And since the Hawkeye already had a general idea of where the missile came from, it starts scanning that sector of Yemen using segmented radar sweeps. With no commercial or private aircraft flying over Yemen, anything up there is almost certainly a Houthi drone.
And pretty quickly, they find them. At 342 miles out, the Hawkeye picks up video feeds from 4 Houthi drones flying in formation. They'd sent them to watch the missile hit the target. But instead of getting an Instagram-worthy highlight reel, they just earned themselves a missile delivery from Uncle Sam. But before the US could rain fire, there was one more step.
See the satellite? It's a KH-11. This thing is like the thumbtack that pins down the whole mission. Orbiting at around 500 kilometers above Earth, it's so advanced that it can spot objects as small as 4 to 10 inches from that height. In other words, it's like standing in Washington, D.C. and being able to see the toppings on a sandwich in New York City. And let's be real, they're always skimpy anyway.
Thanks to that crazy level of detail and high-speed data links, the satellite converts the general area identified by the Hawkeye into precise launch site coordinates in under an hour. Now it's time to send the welcome committee. At around 3 a.m. local time, 2 FA-18 Super Hornets launch off the deck of the USS Eisenhower. 2 more follow shortly after, linking up with the Hawkeye as soon as they're airborne. The Houthis, realizing they screwed up, probably know the launch site is now target number 1. They won't risk setting up another one anytime soon.
But just as the Super Hornets are heading in, their ALR-67 radar warning receivers start lighting up. These are the little antennas located at the nose, tail, and wingtips of the jet, giving pilots full 360-degree radar threat coverage. While they don't show exact distances, they do tell you the direction and strength of enemy radar signals, enough for the pilot to estimate how far out the threat is.
Around that time, the system detects radar signals from a Houthi 1S-91 radar, a straight-line system hidden between 2 residential buildings. Even though the jet's advanced threat library instantly identifies the signal, the pilots still need visual confirmation before launching any attack per the rules of engagement.
And that's where this guy comes in, the advanced forward-looking infrared targeting pod, mounted underneath the jet. It gives the pilots visual ID at up to 90 kilometers, with target recognition accuracy down to 1.2 by 2 meters. That level of precision lets the pilots tell legit military targets apart from civilian structures, even in densely populated areas. Once they've confirmed the target visually, the F-18S can begin their strike.
At about 30 miles from the launch site, the lead